Alright, let's do this intro and shit. Hello, everybody. Before we get started today, it's imperative, as always, I say this every episode, like, subscribe, and share the fuck out of the podcast. Word to mouth. We talk about this a lot in the episode with my guests. It's how we do it. It's how we branch out. It's how we, get to where we want to go. So those three things are imperative. So if you guys can do that, that really helps us out. That really helps us out, get more stuff, get a better setup and all that. On that note, feel free to check our Patreon if you want to donate. We always take that. I think I'm going to try to start making an effort to because the Patreon's been kind of inactive, and I'm going to try to make an effort to actually post stuff to that. Second thing I want to do, just kind of some housekeeping, some announcements. I wanted to promote this. My good friend, The Round Hero, we just recorded a track about a couple weeks ago, and it is fuego. It is dope. But he is going to be performing at the Roz Talks, 12 to 6 p.m., and there's also going to be live graffiti and painting. It's going to be outdoors, so they're all going to be, from what I understand, they're all going to be taking those kind of COVID precautions. So for those of you who are worried about that, they'll be doing that as far as I know. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. I'm hopefully going to be there. I just realized after telling them that we have a podcast in the middle of that, so I don't know if I'll be there before or in the earlier or later, but hopefully I'll be there at some point. Third thing, kind of a sad, sour note. I want to take some time to give an honorable mention to Vavio Muse. Here, I'll actually pull up the Instagram post here quick. These guys, they were doing a lot of shit. They were, when I saw The Round Hero, this guy I was just talking about for the first time, he performed there along with a lot of other hip hop artists, and it is just very sad that I assume during if I can even spell this right, maybe. Shit. Maybe I can cut this out while I find it. Maybe. Yes. Here we go. Vaudeville. God, I'm a fucking idiot. Yeah. So here's the post. Vaudeville Muse opened December 5th, 2002. Cause of death: COVID-19. Fall 2020. The old and weak die. This do-it-yourself venue welcomed thousands of artists to bring their original creations to Des Moines. Many have indelible memories of simpler times. The public responded, going to big or small events, moving to the creative landscape forward. Some will say that the Muse passed too soon. Others say that the acts and the staff inspired generations to come. So, yeah, very sad. This was kind of heartbreaking. I'm not gonna lie. This was a huge venue for independent artists, people who, we talk about in the episode, people who maybe don't have that outreach. They were it was a place for those kind of artists, and unfortunately it's no longer that. So my heart goes out to the people who run that, and anyone else who performed there or enjoyed it. This is a very sad day very sad time for any local Des Moines musicians. So I really hope once COVID ends that we can maybe get something else going in the area. The last thing I want to touch upon, I don't even want to get political with this, really. I just want to say there's a lot of things going on right now, and we didn't talk about it in the episode. I don't really want to talk about it. There isn't really any purpose. You guys probably all know what I'm talking about. The thing I want to just remind everybody is, even though things are stressful, things are tight, people are talking about, a civil war of information, ideas. The important thing is unity. We got to remember that we're all people, and we all have hearts and brains. We all have independent thoughts and experiences, and those make us different people. And we just need to try to be, have some unity. That's all I want to say. My guest today, this man is a really big player actually, in the Des Moines podcast. I was really surprised he reached out to me, and upon reaching out to me, looking at his podcast, I was like, wow, he's big. He's got a logo. He has, I think, 108 episodes. I think that's the biggest catalog of any podcaster I've seen from around here. Surely far more than I have. But yeah, so this was a great fucking episode. Very interesting character. It was really fun to talk with a fellow podcaster, and I hope he comes back soon. Give it up for Peter Stockdale. Hello, everybody. You are watching / listening to the McAllister Hours. As always, I'm your host, Cole McAllister. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Peter Stockdale.
What's up, everybody?
He runs the Audible Farm podcast, which he reached out to me and he was like, let's swap, let's, come on the show. And we had Guy drop out. We were going to do a limo podcast today. That didn't happen.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been so cool.
It was just hard to figure out the specifics of it, because he had power everything. I didn't want to drain his car battery and setting everything up. It just would have been a nightmare. So we decided to hold off on that.
Yeah, let's keep it in your back pocket for another time. 'Cause that's a cool idea.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, that was weird. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It was a nice drive down here, and I'm from northern Iowa for anybody that doesn't know, but I'm always down here in Des Moines, whether it's for bands and things like that. So for a while I would come down here and do podcasts, in person, and I still do in-person podcasts. I've switched a little bit to doing Skype and in person, but I still do come down and talk to people. And it's, you get used to the drive. It's not really that big of a deal. Some people are like, well, it's 2 hours one way. That's insane. And it's like, well, I don't know. When you do it every day or 2-3 times a week, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, you get used to it. Well, I'm sure, being a podcaster, I'm sure you listen to your own podcast, so that probably helps.
A little bit, I tend to listen to other people's, it's weird because I even ask people you podcast with, did you re-listen to the episode? And they're like, no, I was there. And it's like, yeah, you were, but don't you feel like you want to re-listen to anything you said? And I don't know. For a while, I was really, really deep into that. I was like, I have to listen to every single thing. I have to edit this down perfectly. And I was even going as far as doing radio style edits, where it's take out the breaths in between things, because I was only doing audio. So it was go gung ho in this, because people don't want to hear in between things, or they don't want to hear a crinkle of a water bottle. So it's delete all that out if you can and go with it. And then I was like, this is too much. This is too invasive. And then so you eventually dumb down your style a little bit. And, then after a while it was I'm not even going to listen back to most of this, or I'll take notes while I'm doing the podcast and be like, I need to come back and address something at 36 minutes. And then it's always fun coming back and you're like, what was I what did I need to readdress? And then you're like, oh, that's what I need to do, so but yeah, I don't know. I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts. Recently, I've started discovering other Iowa music style podcasts where people talk to musicians and entertainers and things like that around Iowa. And it kind of intrigued me because that's what I'm doing. And, I can't talk to everybody. So I thought to myself, why not? There we go. That's cool. Why not maybe...
We're back, everybody.
All right,
cool. Let's just jump into some of your background. Where are you from? All that.
All right, yeah, I'm from Humboldt, Iowa. It's the land of Gotch, Frank Gotch. If anybody doesn't know Frank Gotch, he was a world champion wrestler around the 1900s, and he's from Humboldt, Iowa, and a world champion wrestler. But yeah, so I'm from that area, and let's see here. I was in a band in high school. It was called Active Input. We played kind of punk covers and things like that. We didn't do too many original songs, but instead we would do pop punk from the 2000s, because that was pretty much the era of music I grew up with. So we're talking New Found Glory and stuff like that.
Sorry. Keep going.
We still crackling a little bit?
No. Okay, I think we're good now.
So yeah, I would end up playing shows around smaller towns around the Humboldt area and stuff like that. Play at pools. We played a pool party once somewhere in a small town, and that was pretty fun. But, as everything goes when you're in high school, everybody goes a different direction. One guy went to college, one guy went to the military, and everybody kind of just took off. And the drummer eventually joined up with a metal band down here in the Des Moines area, and it was called Dark Mirror. And they were, as far as metal goes, they were a staple around the area for 10 years or so. And they played a lot of shows with a lot of bands. And, a lot of people in that area know of that band. And not terribly long ago, I decided, like, why not pick up the guitar, try and play again, because I haven't played very much in my 20s. So I picked up the guitar, and I was like, well, this is different. I had to figure out, how do I play this and not just, like, read what somebody tells me to play? Because if you're playing cover tunes, it's like, play this chord at this time, play this chord at this time, and it's like, how do I improv? How do I learn how to do something on my own with this? So I had to learn, like, scales and keys and certain things like that, and started figuring out, like, oh, this is how people do this stuff or whatever. And once I figured out, like, I knew what I was doing, my drummer buddy from high school, his name's Clint Blumker. He was the drummer in Dark Mirror. He played drums in a lot of other bands over the years, too, but he was in a punk band called Three Finger Betty, and they were like, hey, if you want to, just learn a couple of the tunes, swing down, just play with us, just see what happens. It's not like we need another person, but let's just see what happens.
Let's have some fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
So me having now figured out, like, keys and scales and things like that, I could figure out, like, oh, this is all the songs they have recorded, and they're online to listen to. So I'd go listen to them and be like, this is what key these are in, and then I'd start to figure out, oh, this is how you play all these songs. And once I started realizing that, I'd never tried to, like, listen to the radio and replicate a song, but that was some of my first instances of doing that. And it's not ludicrously intricate, like, classical finger picky style stuff. Yeah. It's punk music, and it's not to, like, down on it. There's intricacies involved, but it's still, I had to learn how to do that from scratch. And I showed up at the practice, and it's just like, well, what songs do you know? It's just like, just start playing one, because I'll know it, at that point. So you go in there and you play all the songs with them and stuff like that, and I think, oh, this is really cool, and join up with the band, play my first show. And it's weird when you play your first show. I always think, like, even as I'm like an adult, quote unquote, an adult. Now, who's an adult really? I've been pondering that question a lot lately. That might be a different podcast topic for a different time. Anyways, I'm an adult. For people watching, there's heavy air quotes, but I'm an adult, so I go play a show, and it's just like, I'm super nervous, and there's, and I'm not trying to say, like, that's just how music goes, but not everybody's like a huge mega rock star, and you show up to a bar and it's like there's 30 people there, tops, and some of them are there to drink beer and not listen to you, and I'm sitting here sweating bullets, like, everyone's gonna watch me and judge me on the internet, and it's like, dude, you're an adult, just go with it. You prepared for this. It's not a big deal. And and that's something I always think a lot of musicians go through, is like those jitters when you first got to go up there and play. I mean, everyone goes through it a little bit, and you have to go through it, I think, somewhat every time you go on stage. But it goes away quicker for some people and other people not. And, getting out of your element's never easy, though.
No, God, no. Well, and, there's something about, like, reading the crowd, like you said, and that's Seth Leopold. He's another guy we've had, and we've talked about, like, how he is so, not upset, but, like, how he wishes there were other venues for people to perform. Because it seems like in Iowa, very, drinking state, kind of every concert you go to, it's, a lot of people drinking, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but, I guess for performers, it would be nice to, like, play to, other crowds. Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword of the whole thing. Like, live music and alcohol go hand in hand, and I don't know whether or not, like, I made a joke once in a meme online, and I'm glad it didn't go very far, because people probably won't take it the right way, but I always wondered, like, is alcohol and live music hand in hand because, like, only people who drink want to listen to live music, or is it that, like, live music induces people to want to drink and have a good time, like, which one is the benefactor here, or do they, like, lean on each other and one can't stand without the other? I always wondered that,
I would say the latter, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have been to shows where nobody's drinking, and been to shows where people are drinking, and people who are drinking are definitely more rowdy, and that gets and that gets people on stage to perform in a bigger sense, because I mean, you can go play at a small bar and you can just treat it like a small bar. You don't have to treat it like an arena, but you can you can make it you can make it out to be a slightly bigger thing than it is, and people enjoy that.
Have a little more energy than what's expected, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to a lot of, like, people who are either, like, DJs and R&B artists and rappers and things like that, and they're not just going to stand there and not move at all.
They're hyping up. Yeah.
Bingo. And why can't somebody playing guitar do that? Why can't and I've been to shows where you can tell people, it just seems like people are not enjoying themselves standing on stage, and it's like, it's hard for me to enjoy what you're doing if you're just sitting there, like, melancholy faced, not into it. And so I don't know, I'm a little guilty of getting too into it. You know, I'm always running from one side of the stage to the other and making faces and stuff. You know, I'm trying to be as animated as possible while on stage. And I think people take to it, you know, to some extent.
You know, back when I was in high school, I was actually a member of the pep band. I played guitar.
Nice.
I played guitar for about, well, I kind of took a hiatus for a couple years. I kind of just recently getting back into it. I did jazz guitar in college.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I've played for about 10, 15 years, I would say, roughly. But I remember when I was in pep band, I would dress up in all the school colors, and I would like go crazy. I'd roll around the floor and stuff like that. I'd be like Angus Young up there. You know? Yeah. That you know, especially during COVID, like that energy is like really, you know, it's kind of been lost in the whole rock thing, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that's weird about it too. Like, I mean, I try my best to avoid COVID talk as much as possible, even on my podcast, same. But it has affected everything. So it's like the elephant in the room. You got to address it. But I mean, it's weird because I love going to shows and seeing people move around and stuff like that. And I've still played at shows since, you know, coming back. I'm from a smaller town. There's some of the places aren't locked down. Some places allow music, and when they did, if we booked a show, I would play it. So like you'd go there and you want, like I said, you want that high energy, you want people moving around and doing stuff. But I mean, I've been to some shows where some people are moving around and moshing into each other. And like I said, I'm not terribly like overly reactive about it, but it's still just, you're still watching that like, man, these people are bumping into each other mid-pandemic, you know, like regardless of how serious anyone wants to take it, it's just like, that's a little over the top. And I wonder if that'll ever go away, you think, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of the debate, like, are we ever going to go back to what was before, or is this just going to be the new normal?
Oh, I hope it's not the new normal. I mean, there are some parts about this that I do enjoy, like people standing 6 feet away from each other, like, I don't know. I was a big fan of that beforehand. I'm a fan of it afterwards, you know. And I don't know. Like I sit and think about some cultures, like Japan. You know, they have they have no mask mandates at all. Everyone just wears a mask to be courteous. And I mean, maybe that's a little over the top. I don't know, but it's still like, seems like a really nice thing to do. I wouldn't mind if that was something that was more common here, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, like I think when the mask thing first happened, and not to get into this too much, but I think when that first happened, I was really resilient on it. But, you know, after a while, you just realize, you know, it's a really simple thing to just be able to, you know, when you go to the store, just put on a mask for 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, that way nobody's yelling at you, freaking out.
People are going to thank me tenfold. Who wants to look at this? No, I don't know. Like, no, I don't know. It's just one of those things. And it's crazy how it's affected the music scene. I wonder how, you know, like, it's weird to talk about because I think about how everybody kind of adjusted mid-pandemic. You know, a lot of musicians started doing live streams and things like that. And as weird as it sounds, I was always really into, you know, people that were doing live DJing stuff with like a full setup. I was really into people with Ableton launch pads and things like that, because it's like, oh, you're doing almost all of this with, you know, with no, you can't just like put your hands up and be like, look how cool I am, because you have to punch all the buttons in and stuff. And so I started looking online. I'm like, well, these guys have been doing this forever. You know, these guys have been doing this since day one. You know, this is where they're at. And you know, some of my friends, I mean, even as far as like, as ludicrous as it sounds, you go on PlayStation 4, you can get on the PlayStation Network and watch live feeds from people. And there's a lot of that going on there. And one of my buddies used to just turn that on in the background and just be like, I don't know, this is what's going to go on the TV in the corner while nobody's paying attention. But while you're watching it, you're like, this is pretty cool, whatever this guy's doing, you know? Because I can't do any of that. Because I just play, like I said, I play guitar. So I'm always wowed by people that can, you know, run in Ableton or even like DJ systems and stuff like that. It's way easier now than it's ever been. But it's still pretty mind-blowing that people can do it. I'm still, you know, that's one of those things as far as music and talking to musicians and stuff. I was always scared, like, country music's not my thing. Am I going to like talking to country musicians? And then you talk to them, you go see them live and stuff, and you're like, I can't do any of this stuff this guy's doing. You know, I can play guitar, but this guy's playing the guitar a completely different ways, thinking of different stuff, and it's you gain an appreciation for it, you know.
That's interesting. No, like the things with the streaming, like it's almost like it was set up for COVID, you know, like it just was a perfect, it was a perfect transition for them.
And honestly, like there were so many people that had nice fancy setups. Like we were talking earlier about, like, oh, you get an interface and a camera and you hook it all up and you put it on OBS or whatever, you know, get something to control all of those things. You can get different angles and you start plugging in different loops with whatever DAW you're running or what, you know, you can start linking all this stuff together and get a really crazy setup. I've seen people just put a cell phone in the corner of the room and run it, and it works fine. If you're just doing acoustic stuff and singing, as long as you're not in like a hallway, the acoustic should be fine, and it'll work well enough. But the other cool thing is the people that had those really awesome setups could really tweak their sound. And I know some people that did that where they set up a studio and they would just sit like you have with a nice backdrop and have everything. It's all set up and you just sit down and you play. And it's to the point where you could put it on a big screen TV with a sound system and it sounds amazing. So like these people that couldn't leave their houses or wouldn't or shouldn't, whatever, would be able to sit there and watch some of their favorite musicians play, and be able to crank it up and have like high def streaming of somebody that like, oh, I would have gone and seen him this weekend, but nobody's playing shows now. So what am I going to do? It's like, well, he's on Facebook. Let's get on Facebook and stream it on the TV.
Yeah.
So you get this like in-house theater experience with some of these people that went over the top with their setups. And I really appreciate everyone doing it. Like I said, it was something that guitarists and things didn't really do too much of, but the people that were, DJs and people on that nature were doing a lot of it. I mean, I tend to think a lot of it's more tech savvy anyways. If you're a DJ, you're going to be a little bit more apt to run a computer.
Yeah, you need to. Yeah.
And maybe some guitarists. I know a lot of them that are, I wouldn't say scared of technology, but they steer clear of it as much as possible. So
tell me what to do.
Yeah. It's like, are you on Instagram? Like, no, I don't know how to run that. And it's just like, it's an app on your phone. Like, I don't have apps. Like, oh, okay, and
I envy that.
Yeah.
I wish I had a flip phone.
Yeah. I love that too, though. Like the dichotomy of all the musicians and how everybody runs stuff. Like if you go on music, forums or like any of the local music Facebook groups and things like that. There's just as many people posting rap stuff as as any like what I would call traditional like guitar band style music. And the cool part about that is like these guys are on the internet. They're on here every day. They're scrapping. They're posting their new stuff. They're recording stuff. They're promoting their things. And I feel like some of that's lost in like the traditional music scene nowadays because since they couldn't hang flyers up and all that stuff went away. And a lot of people are just like, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. You put it on Facebook and who looks. And it's like, well, that's when you got to get it in the groups and you got to go to forums and find like-minded individuals like yourself being, a podcaster and say like, what are you doing? Like, is there any way you and I could like high five each other and just let everybody know that we both exist and, help each other out,
Yeah, that's actually like kind of what I was going to ask you. Like, I guess you kind of just said, but like, I'm curious how you think the streaming, because, it gives people more access, but at the same time, they're kind of lost in the algorithm,
Yeah. I mean, that's, give me just a second.
You're good.
I mean, that's one of the crazy things I think about. Like, I feel like there is a weird plateau that everybody faces at some point in their life. Whether or not you're like lifting weights, you'll plateau. If you're working out, you'll plateau somewhere. If you're playing music, eventually you only get so good and you're like, I hit a roadblock. And it's that way with social media. I feel like almost every band gets to one spot and wherever that spot might be, and then it just stops, whether it's 500 likes or 3,000 likes or whatever it is. And some of those bands just can't find ways to get over that plateau. And some of it is, I've seen bands with way more likes that are inactive on their social media, and I've seen things that are very active, maybe like my podcast, Facebook and Instagram. I try to post like once a day, which is maybe too much, and that's the thing. How do you guess through the algorithm? You don't know. It changes all the time. There's certain like rules you got to follow. Like if you're gonna post there's something on my YouTube page, you post a screenshot and not the YouTube link, and you put the link in the comments section because that pushes it through the algorithm better. It's just a big load of nonsense. I mean, I get some of the tactics that are involved.
I didn't know that. If you put your link in the description, it works the algorithm better?
Yeah, so, I mean, you got to think about it from Facebook's point of view. They want you to stay on Facebook and look at their ads and stuff. So if you share a YouTube link, it's directly on the front of the page. It says, take me away from Facebook. And Facebook says, we're gonna put that one in the back pocket and try to avoid this as much as possible, and only leave the people that are on Facebook a lot that scroll through a ton. It's like, all right, fine, we'll show you that thing, Or if you really, really like what the person has, if you like every single thing they post, you'll see it. But if you like say post the thumbnail, just a picture, and say, hey, I've got a new video up on my YouTube, link in comments, and you put it in the comments section. It makes first of all, it has people that really want to watch your thing come find your thing. That's like some of the benefit of it, because they have to click into the comments. But the other end of that is Facebook's not burying that, because even though it's in the comments, it's stashed away there. So people are gonna have to dig into it to try to leave Facebook. So it's only for people that really wanted to leave Facebook. Anyways, it's this weird like, and I get there's probably some formula they have for it, but like I said, I get some of that, and some of it I don't, because I've seen people not follow that rule and be very successful. But it's also like the new like quote unquote rule of thumb. If you want, oh, I made a new thing, here's the cover art, link and comment, you know, and that's been the new thing. But it's also, like I said, it's tough because people just scrolling by can't just like click on it and take you there. So
yeah.
And I don't know. And even then you get on YouTube and it's like, what's the YouTube algorithm like, you know? And
yeah, it's arguably worse, you know?
It's tough. I mean, I could sit at my house and just review all of the stuff I put on the Audible Farm YouTube page like over and over and over again and give it thousands of likes. And it's not going to push it up the algorithm because they know it's coming from the same, you know, IP address or the same MAC address that is located on the same Wi-Fi that upload. I mean, they go through all this nonsense to figure out who's doing that stuff. So just, I mean, that's the worst part is like, even though there's all these algorithms and stuff, it's like word of mouth is still, even though it's now on social media, it's still the best way to do it. You have to have natural people naturally sharing your stuff. And I mean, I'm just as guilty as everyone is peppering the Facebook groups with, you know, hey, check out this week's podcast. But sometimes I feel like it's more of a hindrance than, you know, it's like I shared this in 10 different places and only this many people saw it. Last week, I shared it in 3 places and more people saw it.
Huh.
You know, and so maybe Facebook knows like, oh, you're posting this stuff in a lot of places. We're just going to push this out of the algorithm, you know, because it's not important because you're trying too hard or something.
Yeah, I mean that's the scariest thing about all this too. Is like we don't even really know what's going on. It's just kind of up to their discretion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was watching this what was it? The Social Network,
mm-hmm.
the movie about Mark Zuckerberg last night.
Okay.
You know, Facebook is just like a necessary evil. I feel like I have always hated Facebook. I just got it again after deleting it for the 3rd time.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I will say, like with the podcast, it's really helped. It's really helped me grow. Like, but. Fuck, I hate Facebook. I can't stand it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I went like 5 or 6 years not being on Facebook. I went to Twitter only, and people, oh, Twitter is negative. It's only, well, if you find the right people, it's not as negative, you know. And I was a really big fan of the independent professional wrestling scene around Iowa in the Midwest. So I was really big into following those guys and see what they were doing every week and where they were going. And I would travel a lot to go see them and stuff. I regret never having a podcast about that because, you know, I spent so much time around those guys. And I was like, this is really cool. But, gosh, I don't know. I guess it just is what it is. The whole social media thing it's rough. It's a necessary evil, like you said, but there are ways around it. I mean, you can, and I've actually looked into doing this because I'm not really a big fan of being on Facebook either. But I get on it, and I feel like I have to support other people that are doing the same things like you. And I'm trying to train my own algorithm to be more like that, you know. And it's tougher on. I mean, on Twitter you can filter out code words, you know, so you can be like, I don't want to, if anybody says election Trump Biden, just take it off my feed.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Facebook, you can't, you know, and that's the rough part about Facebook, you know. So stuff you don't want to see you can avoid seeing on Twitter a little bit easier, but like on Facebook it's kind of rough, so you have to go through all of the social news feed type stuff that is inherent. You know it's going to come, and it's rough to be involved in, but you know it's going to happen. And I try my best just to steer clear of it, and that's why I only share stuff about my podcast from my personal page, because it's like my opinion on so much else doesn't matter. This is what I'm putting my time and energy into, and it's like this is something good. It's bettering the community that I'm involved in, which is the music community, you know, in northern Iowa and beyond. So I was just like, I'm just gonna do my best to try to only put good vibes out there and avoid the rest. And it's like you said, it's super tough. You know, I'm sure you're just like me, and you kind of get sucked in a little bit, and you're like, I'm so mad at all this stuff, and then you're like, I need to just back it up for a second.
I got really. Not to talk about this too much, but I really did get sucked in this week. I'm not gonna lie. I was on Facebook all pissed. Yesterday I had like a fucking, not like a meltdown, but I was just so upset about stuff. And then like my neighbor made some comment to me about like the noise, and it was just like I won't talk about what, but it was just like really out there and inappropriate. And I was just like and so I'm off social media for the whole weekend.
Nice.
But yeah, man, it it's a cesspool.
Yeah, I think it goes a lot along the lines of like Bill Hicks, comedian. He had some joke somewhere around like you turn on the news and it's just like, you know, a school bus full of children was T-boned by a drunk driver, and then you know the shuttle exploded, and then an asteroid hit the Earth, and a whole bunch of people are dead and stuff like. And it's just anarchy everywhere. And you open your front door, and it's like crickets are chirping, and everyone says hello, and it's like we're all still human and able to interact with each other regardless of what they're all showing us. It's just like, I mean, I do get it. There is a lot of like, you know, horrible things going on in the world, but like I live in a small town and there's almost none of that going on up there, you know. And I still haven't interacted with people that are like, it's so weird how brave people are online, you know. They'll say anything and do anything, and then you go into public and everyone actually has like tact, you know, or like a little bit of class, and it's like, why is this lacking online, you know? Like, plus, like, I don't know, I've needed help doing things before, and when people help me doing things, when they're just like, you listen here, dumbass, and it's just like, I'm not gonna listen, you know. And so when people make points and that's their focal point on Facebook is like, all right, dumbass, this is the way it is, and it's like, yeah, the people you're talking to are instantly tuning you out, and you just turn into Charlie Brown teacher, and you're just wah 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 wah, you know.
Yeah.
And so then I don't know. Let's tie that back to like the algorithm. I wonder how much posting is too much online, you know, for like a band or something like that. And it's just like, how much is too much when you're like out there like every week, like I go to a show, like check out our new single, like we got a music video, you know, or like how much sharing is oversharing. And I always wonder that, because I feel like you can't share too much, but once again, I don't know. You probably can. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's hard to judge, it's hard to gauge.
Yeah,
you know how that's all works. So you live in a small town. What is it? Ottawa?
I live in Humboldt.
Oh, Humboldt.
Yeah, I actually I talked to a few people from the Ottumwa area actually recently. There was somebody from the Ottumwa area on my recent podcast, so that's probably where you were thinking about. But yeah, I mean, not terribly different types of towns, I guess. Like Humboldt is a small town in northern Iowa. There's not terribly much going on. There are a couple places that have live music in the town there. I live near Fort Dodge, I guess would be the easiest way to say it. So like, if you know where Fort Dodge is, the music scene up there is popping like crazy.
I didn't know that.
If you guys are like interested in seeing any of the music type stuff that's going on there, I've interviewed most of the people in the area on my podcast, at least at one point in time or another. Whether they be singer-songwriters themselves or just drummers and bands and things like that. So there's a pretty good scene going on there, and it was kind of weird because when I started playing music, I joined a band in Des Moines, and I spent no time in the Fort Dodge music scene, and it was, like I said, it was just odd because I live near a scene that has a lot of people in it, and I was not involved in it, you know. And I leapfrogged down to the Des Moines area, and I did all my shows down there, and it took me a while to finally like interact with people. Actually, it took starting a podcast, and that's how some people were like, oh, you live like right over here and you have a podcast. Why don't you just drive down to Fort Dodge and talk to us? And I was like, all right, sounds good. And I ended up meeting a lot of people that I never would have met before, and, you know, getting introduced to their bands and things like that. And I would show up at like jam nights and stuff and watch people play guitar, and it was just like, this is really cool. These people are hamming it up and just going crazy. And, you know, they get down and you talk to them, and it's like, how do you know what to play or what? Oh, it's like, I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And I was like, well, I need to get my improv chops up, you know. And eventually I did, and I went to some jam nights and stuff like that in the Fort Dodge area, and that was another one of those we were talking about earlier. You get outside of your comfort zone, and you're like, oh man, is this going to be cool? And you're just sweating bullets the whole time. Like, is anybody going to like this? And I remember going to, it was called Patty's Pub in Fort Dodge. They recently closed, but they had jam nights every third Thursday, and it would be packed. I mean, there'd be 20 or 30 guitarists that would go up on stage through the course of the evening, and it was 5+ hour long gig, and I mean, multiple drummers, you name it, and people would just be playing all sorts of songs. And I got invited to be the host musician for that. So the host musician is pretty much like, your deal is you have to play if nobody else wants to play, and it makes sense, you know. So you go up there and play, and it's never really much of an issue. But like if you have like 40 people there and everybody's got to get a shot, and everyone only gets to play 3, 4, 5 songs, and then you're done for the evening. So it's kind of luck of the draw what you get to play and who you get to play with and stuff like that. So that's some of the fun parts about jam nights. But I was so nervous the first one I went to, and eventually that tension wears off. You get a couple songs and you're like, this is really cool, you know. And you start to like interact with the other musicians there, and they're like, you did great and stuff like that. And then it made me realize, like, as nervous as you are to go somewhere, like, people aren't maliciously sitting out in the crowd like, I hope you fail, like, you know, I hope this is horrible so I look good and they do not, you know, like, nobody is that seriously maliciously thinking that stuff. And if people are, it's obvious, and people don't like those people.
Yeah,
you
they
know?
don't make it very far.
Bingo. Yeah, you make it arm's distance, and that's about it. And that's probably the roughest part about that is crackling. I'm sorry I hit it.
No, you're fine. Goddamn. We're getting an audio face. Next episode will be not having any more of these technical issues. Sorry, continue.
No, it's cool. It's and you know, I think about that. I don't, like I said, I don't interact with too many people in like the R&B, the hip hop area around Des Moines and wherever else in Iowa. But it makes me wonder, like, I'm assuming it's very close to the same thing there. I'm assuming they don't have any of that kind of stuff. You know, there's none of that malicious intent. You know, nobody. Like I said, I've seen it here and there, but the people get usually called out for it or not get invited back to a show, or, you know, it's pretty obvious, especially in like the independent music scene where you're playing. It's like we got 4 bands on a show, and if one of them is acting maliciously, it's like, oh, well, this is pretty obvious they're not going to be invited back, you know. Or if one person is loudly saying poor things about the band, it's like, well, this is not going to stand, you know. So this aggression will not stand.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like, who the fuck do you think you are? You know, you're in Iowa.
Yeah. I always thought that was like, yeah, and it's all, and I'm not trying to be mean about like what we're all doing, because we're all doing the same exact thing. We're all out there, and I'm not trying to be mean about the way that like payouts go and things like that. But if you're in like an independent band, you're making original music, like let's say in the punk rock, anything like that, you're not clearing like $1,000 gigs every night. Like, it's just not the way it works. You're out there fighting for pennies, and I'm not like, not literal actual pennies. Paydays are better than that. But like, it's still like, you're not going to fight with somebody over, you know, an $80 bar night on a Tuesday or whatever, you know. And it's like, nobody's going to fight with somebody over, like, why would you even want to? You have to enjoy doing what you're doing, otherwise it's not worth your time. And I mean, I guess I'm case in point number one for that. I drive 2 hours to every gig, you know, and the gigs are like, if we split all the money up, it's barely enough to pay for my gas, you know. And it's like, well, all right, well,
but you know, it's not about that.
No, it's definitely not. And like I said, you have to love doing what you're doing. I'm sure you see a lot of it in your line of work as well, with the people you interact with. And that's the common point that a lot of people make in my podcast, is just like, you have to like doing what you're doing. I've talked to young people, old people, it doesn't matter. I've talked to people who just first started playing, just to get like different perspectives from everybody. And you find everybody goes through the same issues. It's like, I played for a while, it got kind of tough, and I gave up, and then I came back to it, and then I got better. And it feels like everyone has the same basic story, and it's like, what is your trick to success? And it's just like, I just kept going, you know. You got to be in it for the long game. You got to be in it for the long haul. And that's one of those things I think about, like, you know, with whether it be our podcast, whether it be a band, or whether it be anything, like, some of it is literally just a game of longevity. You know, you have to just be successful long enough to play the permanent game, you know, be in there forever. And just by attrition, everyone's going to know your name or that you're that thing. And sometimes, like, that's literally all it takes. Obviously, some skill is involved, but you know, you know, you can't just rely only on flash. That's for sure.
No, not at all. It's not the, you know, 80s with glam metal or anything.
Oh no, I mean, that was an awesome time, but you know that even looking back on it, like, it became a caricature of itself pretty quickly. So I think about that too, where it's like, well, it is what it is. And I mean, when I first started playing music and enjoying like guitar, it's like, I want to do this. I want to do like the flashy solos, and I want to have like the long hair and all that other stuff. And now, you know, I mean, I've adjusted my hat enough on the podcast. It's not much of an option anymore for me.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I've been through different musical styles of enjoying things. Like I was raised on oldies. My dad was a big Roy Orbison fan, so I was, you know, fed a lot of that kind of music. And then I ended up going into like, what's the first kind of music I kind of enjoyed was like punk music, and like I said, pop punk and things like that. And then I got in high school, and one of my buddies, the drummer that I had talked about earlier, Clint, he was just like, you should check out some of this stuff. And he's like, it was Iron Maiden, and I was just like, oh, this is insanely good, you know? So then it was just my first taste into metal, and then I started listening to like metal, and it's like, oh, you can get heavier than Maiden, or you can get like, you know, lighter than Maiden in the metal, so, like you said, hair metal, or you can go like Pantera heavy, or Megadeth, or Metallica, you know, and all that other stuff. So I went through all these different, you know, phases, and then I quit playing guitar, and I got off the internet, and music just wasn't my thing anymore, and I enjoyed it still, but I started, like we talked earlier before this, I was really into NPR and listening to talk radio and things like that, just because I wanted to gain everyone's perspective on things, and you know, I got back into music, you know, but it was still one of those things that it's all in this big, long journey that you take to getting where you're going to go, and I'm sorry my stories get a little sidetracky, but most of the I mean, this is kind of weird. I'm usually not the one put in the hot seat. You know, everyone always asks me, "Oh, you should have somebody come in and interview you on your podcast." And it's like, no, it's good. And now I have that. So all those people that said I needed to get interviewed, I'm pointing you to this, and I hope you're listening right now or watching.
Yes. Hell yes. Either way. I say we take a really quick break here. I'm so sorry. It's just been crackly and
bummer.
Yeah,
bummer.
So we're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna try to fix that, and we'll be right back. All right.
I've done podcasts in parks while it's windy. I've done podcasts.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've done them in coffee shops that were noisy. I've done them everywhere, so I get it. Trust me, it's not a big deal.
All right, we're back. We're back from the technical difficulty break.
Yes.
So I want to get into your podcast, Audible Farm podcast.
Yes.
How did it start? What was your inspiration for it? You kind of glossed over it a little bit, but what are some of the details?
All right, so I played in a punk band in Des Moines called Three Finger Betty, and I still play in the band. We got an album coming out next month.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So maybe I'll get into that a little bit later. But so I mean, I play in the band. You go to shows, and we talked about it a little bit here and there, and it's not like you're getting the biggest payouts. It's not like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people go to every single show. So it's always like, what's the best way to promote this thing? You know, what's the best way to promote anything? And podcasts are huge, and I like having, you know, something to listen to. And I know people that listen to podcasts, and I just kind of put the idea out there as like, would this be a thing that anybody would be interested in? I had already started a YouTube channel where I started recording bands live, and it's like, you guys are awesome. How come you don't have a CD? And they're like, we don't know how. We don't have the money. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources, whatever. And it's like, I'll just record you live. I've got a simple enough setup that works well enough that it will sound good, and it won't be like those early 2000s potato phone recordings that people have online, you know. So yeah. I would put band, you know, videos online to try to help, you know, them promote, you know, themselves. And it's like, if you ever, you want to book a gig across the state, and they're like, send us your album. And it's like, well, I don't have an album, but here's a live recording. And when they hear a live recording that's good, they're like, wow, this actually sounds pretty good, you know, as opposed to like a phone recording. It's tough to see what somebody sounds like, you know. So they would be like, oh, this sounds pretty good. You guys are pretty awesome. Let's book you over here. So I did that for some bands, and they got some bookings. And I was like, what if I, you know, try and dig a little deeper into this and do like a podcast or something like that. So I was like, anybody have any interest in this? Would anybody have any interest in coming on this? Is like, you know, that's one of the other things I didn't really think about beforehand too much, but, you know, people expressed a little bit of interest. So I started one, and you know, I interviewed some of my friends to start out with, and I started like talking to people I wouldn't normally talk to, because I figured it'd be a good way to branch out in the music scene, and maybe like not just, you know, make them aware of me, but make everyone that I know aware of them as well. Or like, let's say I'm going to interview, you know, Ben Christopher from Patient Zero. He was like the third person I ever interviewed, and I didn't know him like at all. I'd seen him live. I was friends with him on Facebook, interacted with him very minimally, and I was like, well, this is going to be weird sitting down with somebody I don't know. You know, I was driving down to his shop that he manages, and which is BRG Music of Perry. Shout outs. No. So like, if you guys are around that area and you need guitar work, that's where to go. No. So I did a podcast with him, and it was kind of weird, because it was like, I don't know this guy very well. What are we going to do? How are we going to, like, you know, interact and stuff? And it was my first taste of getting to know people that I didn't know very well. And you start to find out like, oh, this guy is more than just a long-haired metalhead guy that plays, you know, guitar, and he's, you know, angry, you know, like that's what you think, metalhead, long hair, guitar, angry guy, you know, don't talk to him regularly. And then you find out it's like, oh, he plays more than just that. Oh, he has a music shop. He gives lessons, you know. And I started realizing that everyone has this wider story that needs to be told, because you can paint people in, you know, into this area where it's just like, this is what this person is, you know. And I'm sure you're finding that out too, where it's like rappers are more than just like, you know, whatever people perceive them to be, because people put them in a box just as much as, you know, metal musicians or anything, you know. And it's like, you know, or you think about 60s like hippie musicians, you know, it's like, oh, hippie music, you know, it's like every music has this box that these people get put into, and you start to figure out, you start to figure out like, oh, this person's got a 9 to 5, they got a family, they're a regular person, like they're doing all the stuff they're supposed to be doing, you know, trying to do like a regular person does, and they just happen to like this music and they're doing this too. And I felt like that was a good story to kind of tell, you know, or talk to people about, as far as, you know, what made you start doing this, you know. And it's kind of weird to have somebody ask me what made me start doing it. It was literally just nothing more than my curiosity, as far as like, what made you start playing guitar? Like, did you start with, and then you're like, oh, this person started playing the trumpet first, which, you know, or something, you know, and that's what I started with, or they played piano, or, you know, and you can kind of identify with people. And I've even had people say, oh, somebody heard me on the podcast and they came up and talked to me about something I'd said. And I was like, well, that's, you know, that's what it's literally all about, is to make these people realize you can go up and talk to these people. Because, I mean, I did a podcast just a couple episodes back with a couple of guys that played a metal band in Des Moines, and I thought, I mean, I went all the way back to episode 3 with Ben and was just like, metal guys, scary, like, and I play metal, I'm playing a metal band, and I'm not, you know, I'm not a scary person, so it's like, it's not a big deal. And then eventually you realize, like, these guys, they were some of the biggest jokesters. It was Blacked Out World. And I mean, the funniest part about that, I started out the podcast, I didn't know one of the people when I started out, called him by the wrong name. And we left it in there, and they laughed it off, you know, and it was really funny, but that like set the tone for the whole thing. It was just a laugh riot the whole time. And, you know, I even had to admit to him, I was like, I went into this thing thinking, oh, this is scary, you guys are like metal dudes, and you're not gonna like me, and there's some of the funnest people out there, you know.
Shit. Okay, maybe we're good now. Jesus fucking Christ,
that's crazy. I don't know what's happening.
It just won't stop. I think it's the cable, but you sound good now.
All right.
Shit, what the fuck was I just gonna... Oh, how long ago did you start your podcast?
Oh, we just it just went just over 2 years. So like, I had the 2-year anniversary. I started out with episode 0. Oh shit, I just hit it. I started out with episode 0, and episode 0 was just a solo episode. I sat there and was just like, this is kind of who I am. I play in this band. I do these kind of things, and I'm just going to talk to people, you know. And it's not. I didn't want to go too deep into it because the podcast, you know, like I said, it started out as like a promotional tool for like other bands as well as me, but it's not really about me. I used to, at the end of every episode, it was like, I got 3 weeks, I got a show coming up, you got to come check, you know. After a while, I was like, nobody, you know, it's not that nobody cares. It's like, that's not why they tuned in. They tuned in to listen to the guests. So like, I leave it at the end. Sometimes I'll talk about shows I have, but it's like, that's the part where if you want to fast forward through it, you know, and I hate to... I hate to even recommend that as an option to people. I know people do it. So like if you get to that part and you're like, I've heard this, just whatever, you know, but that's also the part where I try and shoehorn in some fun stuff, like special promos on my online shop, or like links to the other bands, you know, stuff. And so I try and do a little bit of promotion for myself. But like I said, I started out, you know, just trying my best to help other people promote what they were doing. I was really intrigued by it. Like I said, you'd go to see shows, and I mean, not necessarily, I don't want to just crap on country, but country's not my favorite. So you'd go watch these people play, and it's just like, this dude's chicken picking like wild, you know. And if you're not, you know, this isn't like a guitar themed podcast, but it's like just a bunch of finger picking and stuff, like think country music, you know. But it's like, I can't do that. And like, how do you do that? And then you find out, like, you know, this is punk rock, or what, you know. You're just like, this is actually really, really cool, because I can't do any of this, you know. And that's what kind of blew me away, and it makes me really intrigued to like sit down and talk with these people. And now I'm a little less scared to talk to new people, you know. And like I said, like, it was all originally face to face, and then after a while it was just like, I'm having an issue. Like, I had it all scheduled out. You could drive down for band practice one night, a show another night if you need to. For a while I worked out of town, so I wasn't even working in Humboldt. I was driving an hour to work every day. And I was just like, well, I got it all scheduled out so I can do this. But then it was like Sunday, the day I don't drive, like, now you have to drive to do a podcast interview. And, you know, after a while I was like, this is tough. I don't want to drive everywhere. And some people would drive up to meet me. And I was telling you earlier, I've done podcasts in cars and coffee shops and parks and everywhere else. And now that I'm doing video, I don't know how much of that's going to end up keep going on, because it's going to be pretty tough to, you know, do a car interview with a video podcast. Not that I wouldn't do it, but I would. But, you know, it's one of those things. I think about that too, and it's changed over the years. It's morphed a little bit. I started doing Skype interviews, and I did them reluctantly. You do face-to-face only.
I mean, we have. I'm open to Zoom. Like
Yes.
I told you that we maybe could, but
It's a weird beast.
it is.
Yeah.
And you know, the professional podcasts that have done the Zoom, they've just run into so many fucking problems. You know, disconnection, and the other person's talking, they can't hear you. Like, dude, like you need to like.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, you can hear that on my podcast. Even I found, at first I was doing Skype interviews, and I was like, let's just do this over Skype. It's easy to just port the audio in and just take it, and it's not a big deal. So let's just do it this way. And then it was like, I found that when they had video feed coming and I had my video feed up, it actually was, the audio was worse because it's more data that needs to get sent through. And it was there, you would have more of those little blips where it would just be like, boop. So anyways, I did that, and you know, it's like, wait, I missed the good stuff. So in order to alleviate that, I was like, well, we can't have video if we're going to do Skype. And so I did it that way. And now I'm doing video podcasts. So it's like, well, now we have to at least see somebody, but it's so much easier when you can see somebody and you can see their reactions and you can laugh along with them and stuff. And it's really tough. Otherwise, you might as well just do phoner interviews and those, you know. And I don't know. I'm not against any of it. I think I've learned how to do a Skype interview a lot better. And it was really weird at first because you just like dead air, and it's like, are they going to say something? Are they waiting for something? Did we end up with, you know, some technical issues like you said? And it's really tough to get people on the same page as far as that kind of stuff, because the best Skype podcasts I've heard are two people that know each other well enough and they both record their own audio individually and then send it in and mix it, so you never end up with any of that single Skype audio where it kind of sounds like it's on a phone. And I've attempted that with other people, and it doesn't always work, and it does work sometimes, and sometimes you have like timing issues where like the word clock on the recorders are at separate times, so you're like 3 seconds off by the time the hour-and-a-half long recording is done. And I mean, there's goofy stuff like that can happen with it as well. I mean, I've had it miss sync with the audio and video multiple times. I mean, you had to like either stretch one or the other to make it fit. And I mean, it just comes with new problems, a new set of things you need to do. And, you know, like I said, I'm only doing Skype right now, but that limits me to one person. You know, you can do multiple people on a Skype thing now, but Zoom is easier to do it. So you're in this weird spot where it's like, what kind of technology you're going to use? Who are you going to get involved with? But I've talked to other people that do podcasts. Like there's a podcast it's out of, I think, the Ottumwa area, and it's called Brutal Breakdown. It's kind of like what I have going on, and they literally record theirs with an iPhone. And I did not know. Like the audio quality is so good on it, like compared to people. There's some people that have interfaces and DAWs and the whole software, and it's like, the audio quality could be a little bit better on this, and they're doing theirs with just an iPhone, and it's like, oh, this trumps so many other podcasts that I listen to, and you're just using an iPhone, so it's not like you need all this stuff anyways. But
damn,
yeah, I got sidetracked again. But yeah, I don't know. Started the podcast pretty much just to help other people promote, you know, and it started taking on a mind of its own, and I started pumping more stuff into the YouTube channel. There's tons of band videos there, as well as, you know, my own band and other people's bands and things of that nature. But
well, I will say you probably have the most impressive catalog of any podcasters I've seen in the area. You know, a lot.
There's only maybe like two that I would like say that have like a bigger catalog spanning more people, and one of them is defunct now and is no longer a podcast. It was called the Pants Off Podcast. Oh. And it was based out of here in Des Moines. They did like 150-ish episodes. I'm talking ranging from local musicians to bar owners to touring musicians that came through. He would just hit them up and be like, just, you know, I'll buy you lunch, and if you come and hang out with me and I'll talk to you for a little bit, we'll put it on the podcast. Or, you know, it's just simple stuff like that. And he would sit down and talk with some really cool people. So if you're, you know, looking for what happened in the Des Moines music scene 3 years ago, Pants Off Podcast, easiest way to find it, you know. And that's like the only thing I keep thinking of is like people like you and me and Brutal Breakdown and Beers with Bands. I mean, there's so many other Iowa music podcasts. There's so many other podcasts around Iowa that are doing adjacent things that we're doing, and none of us are doubling up on guests for the most part, you know, and we're all telling different stories in different ways and giving people different avenues to, you know, show what's going on. And I just thought, you know, like if we all just kind of keep going and keep doing what we're doing and at least let everybody know that there's other avenues for them. And I mean, I've even tried my best to like interact with the radio DJs that have same style shows, you know, like there's one I'm not gonna start plugging too many radio DJs. It's just gonna get wild because I'll just plug them all. But you know, like almost every college radio town has like, oh, it's the rock and roll whatever local show, and it's like, cool, this is where all the local bands send their stuff into. And I found out that there's like regional bands. It's like you only know about your region's rock show, but you don't know that like 2 towns over that band, you know, there's one on that radio station, and they would love to have your stuff too. So I started like reaching out to all those guys, and every time I'd interview people, it's like, make sure you send your stuff to these radio stations, or have you hit up the station near me, because I know you're in Des Moines, but like there's a station in Fort Dodge that would like to have your stuff be played, and they do interviews too. So like I mean, all I'm trying to do is just help everyone network the best they can, and I mean, it's easy for the radio people to look down on us because we're podcasters and whatever. We don't have to follow the FCC and blah 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 blah.
You know what? That's gonna change though.
It better, because that's a dying breed. That's all I gotta say. I had, like I said, I used to post in online groups, and I discussed this once on my podcast and swept it under the rug very quickly because I didn't want to make it a hot button issue. But like, I had posted something in a group online as Audible Farm, and somebody had found it, and they let's just say they lashed out at the post. They like blocked it and made my page. They marked my page as spam, and I had to go fight Facebook about it.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
And so they were trying to say that I was utilizing other pages' material to. I mean, it was this big, long, nonsensical thing, which obviously led to them never once listening to any of my podcasts, and it was just blatantly obvious to people. But I had said something to one person about it, and they made a post about it, and I didn't even post about it because I was just like, I'm just going to let this go. I'll discuss it very quickly on the podcast and sweep it under the rug. But the music community, like, everyone locked arms and just like looked at these people and like pretty much just like, I don't know what you did wrong, that's what you did, you know. And like you've done a very bad thing by downing on somebody that's doing nothing other than trying to support and promote people. And it was a bad deal, and I mean, nobody. Now everything's fine. Like, I interacted with the lady, and we're okay, and everything's cool. But like the whole gist was like, I'm just going to steer clear of her, and she's going to steer clear of me, and we don't like each other or anything. I just don't post in her group anymore, and and it's tough because everyone has those boundaries, and everyone, it's like, what do you own when you put it on the internet and stuff? And that's why my podcast, I steer away from putting bands' music on my podcast, because I know some podcasts that double as like a radio show, and it's just like, well, the outro will be their song or whatever, and it's like, that's cool, but technically now in YouTube's eyes, you don't own that video anymore, and you don't get to monetize it because you're using somebody else's material.
That was a huge issue we came across too.
And
so I feel like,
even if you get the permission, and how do you tell a bot on the internet that you have permission? And I mean, I know people that have podcasts like that, and they have signed permission to do it, but it's still, removes your ability to monetize something on YouTube, and they don't care. It's just like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the grandest scheme of all things, and I get that, but it's still like, this is rough, and like we were talking, starting up the podcast, I've run into just as many hiccups as you have. I mean, I had an interface I didn't like for a while. I didn't know how to use a portable recorder. So like I said, I'd go places, I'd drag a laptop and an interface and everything with me. And it's like, give me like 10 minutes to set up. You got a table. And it's like, it was just inconvenient for everyone. So I had to figure out how to use a portable recorder. And then it was just like, you might need to get a windsock over this thing, and it's like, probably, and I mean, for the most part, I've found out how to do things, and I'm not like a pro at it or anything. I'm trying my best to like continually improve my craft. It's no different than playing the guitar. It's like, try to be better this time than you were last time, no matter what you're doing, whether it be, me going to weekly jam nights, and like, I go to jam nights outside of the Fort Dodge in the Barnum area. There's a bar there that has jam nights every Tuesday night. Yeah, go to them. Shout out Clint Riedel. So he hosts those. But yeah, I go to jam nights and I play guitar there, and it's like, you just try to get better than the last time. You're not competing with anyone else there. You're competing with yourself yesterday. And that's like the best way to look at life and what you're going, I mean, as far as I'm concerned. Because otherwise you're one of those, we talked about them earlier, those callous people at a show that are just like, I don't like this and it's not good. And it's like, that's not the way you need to be going about doing your business. And it's not a friendly way to go about doing things. And I don't know, like I said, I'm trying my best to like just promote happiness and skill levels of other people, and just give people a place to showcase their backgrounds and their talents and things like that, whether it be recording them and putting them on YouTube or just doing podcasts with them and things like that.
Yeah. Well, going back to like the radio thing, we're not making money doing this. I mean, I don't know, maybe you are, but a little bit.
I mean, there are benefits. I'm not gonna be like, hey, but I got merch, I got T-shirts, I'm wearing a sweatshirt. You got to support your own stuff, I guess. But like, it's not like you said, it's not like no way I can't make enough to eat every month, like on the revenue I'm making off this. Like it's like $7 a month I make off. I mean, I'm showing.
That's more than me.
Yeah, but seriously, like I'm trying my best to like. Who wants to spend $30 on a podcast? And like nobody's gonna spend. So it's like 15. It's like how much are you making? Not much, but it's just the whole fact that like if you like it, just go ahead and buy it. Know that I'm not like making a mint on this stuff. I mean, I sell hoodies for $25, and it's like $25 for a hoodie. Like it's more expensive than that to go to Target and get a hoodie. It's like, yeah, I don't care, but I'm not gonna be like, give me $35 for a hoodie. It's like it's just too much, And I mean, I try my best. I have stickers. I sell them on the shop, but like you saw, I just gave you a pile. It's like I'll just give them away for the most part.
That was awesome.
I do sell them. Usually I try to just give them away to people I interact with on a business sense. Like if I record your band live, it's like here's a pile of stickers. Thank you for letting me put your material on my YouTube page. Because they're gonna listen to it, and it's gonna be my viewing statistics, not yours. And so I mean, I do get some of like. There have been people that have been like upset about that too. Like you need to record stuff and give it to the bands. It's like, oh, you want me to do all the work and then should I promote it and play it for them too? So I mean, there are parts of this where it's like I'm doing my best to support people and people are not always supportive back. I interviewed one person that somebody believed that a story that they told was incorrect, and they were like, this person literally just published a lie, and they would like go on every platform they could and just 1-star everything I did, and it was just like, and for a while that was like a big deal, and it was like every podcast episode thumbs down on YouTube, and it was just like, what are you doing? But I don't know. At the same rate, like
they're the trolls. You can't control the trolls.
No, and I'm not even gonna care too, because it's like if this person has the energy to do this, I don't even care. Like could you imagine just living your life doing that, just hating everything? Like, oh, this one person said one thing I didn't like on this one thing, and I'm just going to comment and blah, 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 and it's like, but you find out that's how a lot of people are acting, and we talked about that earlier, but we're going to sweep right past that one again, because it's not a topic I want to get into.
Well, one quick, going back to like, the guy in the bar, I was kind of thinking about this as you mentioned that, like, when that person's like in the bar, like, talking shit about your music, like, can you even like fucking play an instrument or do anything? Like, fucking asshole.
My God. It's the worst. And I try I used to be very arrogant. I used to just be like, I'm the best. Look at me. I'm so good at guitar. And I'm literally just playing like power chords and like reading music and memorizing. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just like, this is so cool. And then I find out how to play the guitar. I go out, I play shows. I realize everyone's better at guitar than me. It's not the truth, but it's just how I feel. So like, I'm always just wowed by everybody. It doesn't matter what they're doing, how simple it is. It's like, this came out of your brain, didn't come out of my brain. And it's awesome, And so I run into some of that, and I try my best not to be arrogant anymore, but I do recall at one show having done that, where one guy was just like, this sucks, I just took my guitar off and just walked up to him and said, you play it then, and I don't know how, and it was just like, duh, like, this is the problem. And I mean, hilarious, yes, everyone there thinks it's funny, but like, I mean, generally speaking,
but you're pissed.
Yeah. I'm pissed like threefold, because I'm mad that somebody's yelling at me. I'm mad this guy's acting like this, and then I'm mad that I acted like that in return. I should have just kept playing and shut up. But at the same time, like, it's just like, it sucks to put people in their place. I mean, like I said, when I was in my early 20s, that would have been like my go-to. But now it's like, dang it, and I don't know. Post COVID, not everybody's nice. Like, I played a show, and it was right when the bars opened up, and somebody was there to drink and not listen to music, and they made it very adamant in between every song, and eventually somebody bought them a cab and took them to a different place, and it was worked out better for everybody. I didn't have to yell at anybody, and it's really nice. So kudos to whoever did that. You're my savior for the evening.
Damn.
But I mean, I've gone to places and played songs and had people shush me while I'm playing and singing, and it's like, I came unglued not terribly long doing that, and told the person to shut up. And it's like, this is not how a professional would act, on stage. I've sit and talked to so many musicians, and they've interacted with people like that so much better than I do. And some of that just comes down to the fact that I don't drink anymore. I used to drink. It's not like I drank a lot, but I don't know. I just haven't drank in a while. So it's like weird when I interact with people who are drinking, because it's just because I'm not on the same level as them. So I just want to like sometimes yell at them. And it's like, dude, you act the same way when you drink. Just tone it down. Just go with it. And, and so I feel weird sometimes going into bars and playing in bars, not being a drinker, and I mean, for a while that was a thing I had to get over too, where it's just like, everyone here is judging me because I don't drink. It's like, nobody cares, just buy a soda and tip the bartender $1 and walk away. Like that's it. It's the end of the story,
Yeah.
And, I for a while was doing the decoy drinks. I would go to bars and get like, just give me a tonic water with a lime and a straw in it. And people would be like, oh, nice. And then you'd be up on stage and people would start handing, oh, this is vodka tonic. And it's like, I'm not drinking this. And I'm like, oh, is gin and tonic? It's like, no. Just, I got one. And you try to just sweep that under the rug and let people talk about that. But yeah, I don't know. There's these weird, like I said, I used to feel weird about that. Then I find out there's so many musicians that I know that don't drink, and it's like, oh, well, it's like, this isn't like a hindrance by any means. It's not like it's beneficial or anything either. It just is what it is, and every musician is a different person. And I think somebody said it to me recently, like, there's good people who are good musicians, there's bad people who are bad musicians. There's also bad people who are good musicians and good people who are bad. Like, everybody is just their own person, and you just kind of have to take it as it comes. But, as far as judging somebody just based on their music, I wanted to get people past that, a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of the music scene, I feel like, is navigating people, I don't do a lot of hip hop. I do a lot more producing. So I've worked with people and stuff. And it's, especially in hip hop, I feel like it's really easy to get involved in just like not good people. Mm-hmm. And you really have to have what's the term? Like not blinders, but like the opposite. Like you need to be really looking and being really paying attention to what people are doing. It's a really dicey game.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to people that, a few people come to mind where it's like, how did you join your first band? They're like, well, I was, 16 and I got on Craigslist and found people. And it was like, holy crap. Like, or it's just, oh, we need a bassist. So we went on Craigslist and found a guy and invited him over to the place where we got, $2,000 worth of stuff sitting around. It's like, geez, like whenever I've interacted with other musicians, it's like I bring a combo amp and $100 guitar with them. And it's just like, this is what you're seeing me play until I learn how to trust you, because I'm so scared. I see so many people getting their stuff stolen, and that's one reason I don't have like much stuff, or I try to bring like the simple stuff out and about. The guitar I play, like, I don't know, a lot of people, that's how they know me, is like my profile picture was me holding a crazy blue swirly dipped guitar, and everyone was like, woo, this guitar's crazy, but it's actually like a super cheap guitar I painted. So like if somebody steals it, I'm out sentimental value, and I'll be mad. I'll be so mad if somebody steals that thing. But at the same rate, it's like, it's not like I have like a gazillion-dollar guitar I'm dragging everywhere, It's just kind of fun to decoy hide that stuff. I found that in the music world, even in the podcast world, you don't need expensive stuff. We were just talking about how there was a podcast that was recorded with just a phone. Like, they used the voice memo thing on it, and that was it. Like, it works fine, And so you don't need to bring super high-end stuff everywhere with you, and and it's, I don't know. I've thought so much about that. I went on, like, the guitarist people are always on this quest for tone, and I got to get new pedals and amps and guitars, and I got to try the pickups. I'm using new strings now, These cables are better, and eventually I was just like, it's all the same. I don't care. Just use the simplest stuff and go. And so I've rode the wave of every wave that you can probably ride as like a musician in a very short amount of time. And like I said, like, it gets weird when you try to interact with people for the first time, and you're meeting people on Craigslist, or you just put a random ad out there and you're like, hey, who plays a guitar? Do you want to hang out with us? And it's weird, because like, are we going to mesh as people? Are we going to be able to mesh professionally well enough? Are we going to be able to mesh musically well enough? There's so many different factors that a lot of people don't ever think about, because I mean, in a band, you have to have at least, three people. Not at least. You can do a duet stuff, but like 3, 4, 5 people that are willing to stand next to each other, that get along well enough to spend time to like practice together, that are on the same page as far as promoting the music, or like, I've been pushing a lot of bands to like, do you have a music video? Or like, you should do one, because you can just record one with an iPhone, and it's actually works very well. And I've been trying my best to push people that direction and produce and make more things. And it's like, is your whole band on the same page this way? Or do some people just not care about this, or promoting your album or whatever, you know, and you got to get everybody on the same page. And I mean, even some stuff like as far as like political views, like I'm in a band named Three Finger Betty. There's one for you, stereotyping somebody by the band they're in. I'm in a band named Three Finger Betty. No, we play great music. It's awesome, but like we take pot shots at everybody, man. I mean, we're ripping on both sides of the political tree. We're ripping on everybody, and we're equal opportunity haters. You know, it's just one of those. Not really. We just we called ourselves antisocial rock and roll for a while, and it's like that's how we feel. We just feel like the people that are sitting in the corner that are ignored everywhere, and it's just like, this is why you're dumb, and this is why you're dumb, and this is why you're dumb, and we're getting it out in a comedic song sense instead of just like being mad and yelling at people, you know.
I can relate to that, definitely.
You know, and it's super beneficial. It's not like I believe every single thing, you know, the singer is singing and stuff like that. So that's the other thing is like I'm deeper than just the band I'm in, you know, and I'm in a metal band as well named Unity, and we don't play very many shows. And, you know, that's another one of those bands. It's like, it's gone through lineup changes, and it's still kind of sort of going through lineup changes. And it's just one of those things like, when's this, are we going to record an album? Is it going to come out as a demo? And we're all still kind of not on the same page, but none of us live in the same town. So it's really tough to like interact with one another and do that kind of thing. So it's really tough to have everybody get on the same page. And I'm sure every band has like the same kind of things like, oh, we got the, you know, the Facebook chat group or the text thread that we're all in. And these two guys are always texting, and this never says anything. You know, every band has those dynamics and stuff, but you know, it's also tough to find bands where it's like, I feel like some bands work best when it's like one person's really good at social media. He does all the social media, you know, and then this person's good at songwriting, so she's doing the songwriting, and then this person's really good at, you know, and this one's a tech person, so they do all the tech stuff, and like, or they're really good at like EQing or something, so they can help like, you know, have everybody's tone set or whatever, you know, so you can go through all that other kind of stuff. And I feel like it's helpful when every band at least has some of those people, or like some of it is like even just like longevity, you know. I've been in the scene long enough, I know enough people so we can like interact with the right bands or different promoters, or, you know, we'll go play a show and people will show up because I've been playing in bands for 10 years, you know, that holds a lot of weight, you know. And I guess it is what it is, and it's tough though too, because I've interacted with enough musical scenes where I find that some scenes just don't care what other scenes have going on. And I mean, it makes sense because, you know, it's the punk rock and the country people aren't going to hang out, you know, like, I mean, they will, but like, it's not like you can book, you know, you can't book like, you know, Rancid and Brad Paisley on the same show at the same time, you know. It's not going to work out very well, you know. It's going to be weird. So, you know, you get to run into all these different dichotomies, and it's weird how many different people you meet, how many different styles of people you meet. And once again, we're all in this kind of together. So I've never met anybody that's been like overly malicious, at least not face to face. Like I said, there were a few people online that did it, but like everyone knows the plight of the musician. I was talking to somebody else, like, I, just like everyone else, get self-conscious. You know, I get self-conscious about my music just like everyone else does. And that's one reason I don't write too much original music and put it out there. Most of the music that I play is written by other people. And it's just I judge myself so much harder than anybody else would judge me. So I think to myself, like, you know, I don't think anybody will like this, and yada yada. And then you start to talk to other musicians, you're like, I go through that too, you know. And they're like, this song I don't like it even like one bit, but I play it, and it's like, that's one of my favorite songs you play, you know. And it's like, oh, this person like does not like this song they wrote even a little bit, but they play it all the time because everyone else likes it. And that's kind of what you're doing, you know. That's the plight of the artist, is like a perfectionist. I want to be the bestest. It's got to be the most perfect. And you know, I made this painting, and they're like, this looks great, and they're like, I wish the eye was better, you know. It's like, I didn't even notice that. Like, I don't even see what you're pointing at, like why you think it sucks, you know. Or, you know, so you run into a lot of that with music too, and you just can't be so self-conscious it's detrimental, you know. You still have to be able to step outside of your comfort zone, but nobody is immune to that.
No, you know, Nirvana, they actually hated Smells Like Teen Spirit. They hated playing that song. Like, Kurt Cobain would go up there and be like, oh, I don't care. And then he like, or like there was one show where like they played like 15 seconds of it, then they stopped, like, all right, moving on. Everybody's like, fuck you.
Oh my gosh.
I really like your logo.
Oh, thanks.
Audible.
Appreciate it.
How'd you come about that? Did you get somebody to help that, or?
I can do like ludicrously minimal graphic design, so I try my best to. If I need something professional, I'll hire it done. It just makes it look better. could I have made a pig and like strapped it? Like, yeah, I could have done all this, but like, is it going to look this good? No way.
Yeah.
You know, so I went to school with a kid that does graphic design. He actually does a lot of graphic design work for like, I wouldn't say NASCAR, but like auto racing. He's designed some graphics on cars that have actually been on NASCAR. So I did interact with him on a podcast. I talked with him. It's one of the I almost wish I had a list of all of them so I could steer you guys towards them, but it was Brent Licato was the guy's name, and he helped me out and helped do these graphic design for me. So he put together the logo. First was the pig, and I like the pig idea because the podcast is Audible Farm. It's kind of a play on the name of Animal Farm, you know, and I had this whole deal where I'm just farming up other people's content and putting it on a page, and it's not really actually my content. So I was pretty much just like a farmer. You're farming all these crops and selling them off to somebody else because it's no longer your crops, and you're growing crops for yourself. You're growing them for someone else. And I'm from a small town. It all seemed to meet well, and I really like Animal Farm, the book, and I didn't know like
that. I was just thinking that is a great fucking book.
Yeah, I mean,
so well done.
If you think about it, it's like, well, so wait, you're the pig, so you're gonna be the one that takes over and is like tyrannical now. Is that what it is? You know, so like I thought about it a lot, and then I didn't think about it enough, and then it's like, well, this is, I don't know. I thought about making shirts that was just like Audible Farm, like stupid name, great podcast or something. You know, like I don't know. It's catchy, but when people are like, what kind of farming stuff do you talk about? It's like, I don't talk about farming, you know, and it throws people off. Like, you see there's a pig playing guitar, you know, but like, I like the pig stuck. It was like one of the first logos I did. So the pig was on like everything, and I really, really dig it. And he's playing guitar, you know, and it's just a pig with playing guitar with headphones on the side, because it's kind of a mix of like I'm doing podcasting and there's like live music on my page and stuff like that. And now everybody knows the podcast by the pig. You know, some of the first stickers I had were like 1 foot tall by like 6 inches wide pigs, and it was like they were huge, and there's still some cars with them floating around on them. And I see them at shows occasionally, and it's like It's like, this is crazy. This has been on here for like 2 or 3 years, and then you think like, oh, this guy's, you know, making the stickers. They're like, they're insane. I gave you a bunch of stickers. Like you can put them through dishwashers now. Everyone's making good stickers as long as you know where to look.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, those ones I have. I mean,
you can put them through dishwasher.
I should almost go grab one. I've got like a coffee cup I've used at work every day for like.
Oh,
you're
like, talking about okay.
For like 2 years, you can send it through a dishwasher and the sticker stays on it. You know, so it hasn't faded. They look nice. You know, and if anybody's looking for good stickers, you know, I guess there's plenty of places online. Just hit up, like, I mean, there's like Vinyl Disorder and Sticker Mule and all these different places that offer a lot of like first order deal type things. So just go to every place, get the first deal, so you get your cheap stickers from everywhere, and then you can decide which one you ever want to make a second purchase from. You know, so then you can be like, oh, I liked them from Vistaprint was one that a lot of people, oh, Vistaprint prints everything. It's like, yeah, they do, but their stickers are not always the best. You know, even if you pay to have them like, you know, vinyl covered and stuff, they're still not the best. You know, so like that's the other thing about podcasting is like you got to guess and test your way through merch and all sorts of other stuff. If that's a route you want to take, I know so many people that didn't, but like, do you want to do the thing where you let one website take care of all your merch and you have one logo that gets printed on everything, and you can do like coffee mugs and socks and everything? Like, you could do that, but it's like, what's the quality? Like, you have no control over it, you know? So I ended up teaming up with different people to like make the logo, and then I sent it off to Corrosive Screen Printing, which is out of Des Moines here. They just recently moved their operations, but they're still, you know, in the metro area. So if you want to hit them up, that's who I did for my shirts. But it was one of those things where it's like, what kind of shirts do you have? It's like, well, I can do any shirt. And then it's like, I've got this shirt, and it's like my favorite shirt I've found, and it's this, you know, brand, this style, this is the blend. Can you find it for me? And they found them for me. And so like, if you get an Audible Farm shirt, it's like a replica of one of my favorite shirts I like ever owned, at least as far as like comfy. It's like just a lightweight summertime breathable shirt. It's a cotton poly blend. It's really soft, you know, and that's what I leaned on. I was like, I've bought so many shirts for so many bands and things that it's like, I've gotten uncomfortable ones. I've gotten ones that are they've somehow encapsulated all the softness of an onion bag, you know? It's like, what are you doing with this, you know? And how do you sell these things? But it also comes back to like, you're only supporting a podcast, and the only thing I'm doing is supporting everyone else. So like, you don't have to give me $1 gazillion for a shirt, you know, and try and keep it as minimal as possible, at least in every area. And so like, I don't know. I use the logo for a lot of different things, and I figured if I'm going to use it this much, I might as well pay someone for it. My podcast talks about how you're supposed to support, musicians and artists and entertainers and comedians and professional wrestlers and anybody doing any sort of live entertainment, art type related anything really. And so it's like, dude, you just pay somebody, pay a graphic designer, a graphic designer, pay him, So I hit him up and said, can you make me something? And he made me something, and it looks great. And Look, I get it. Like, I can do graphic design work. You can do graphic design work. Did you go to school for it? Are you professional? Like, is this what you do for a living? If it's not, pay somebody else to do it. You'll be happy with the results. Especially, like, I've had him do stuff and it's like, tweak it like this just a little bit. Boom, done, And he knows how to do it because this is what he does,
Yeah.
And so it's not like me struggling through stuff and it's like, oh, I didn't save the template for this, so now if I want to edit this, I have to start all over from the beginning. I didn't save the circle cropped logos for the, you don't have to go through any of that nonsense. Somebody else is already doing it, and they're doing a great job of it. And I mean, I recommend him if anybody's looking for a graphic designer. He works for typical graphic designer rates, I will say. It's not like it's a gazillion dollars. He's fair, but he does a great job.
You got to pay something, definitely. He's putting in labor and all that.
Yeah.
No, that's something that this podcast really needs to get on is merch.
Yeah.
That's definitely our next venture, I would say.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
helps.
Like if you don't want to spend a lot of money on graphic design, just get a simple one from like somebody on Fiverr. Fiverr is a popular place where it used to just be you go on there and everything's $5. Like, well, it's like, what do you do? It's like, make me a logo. It's like, what do you want it to look like? And it's like, McAllister hours. Just like, just do an M and an H and put them together in a circle, and then they'll doodle something up and send it to you. And it's like, do you like it? Like, yeah. It's like, all right, $5, and they'll send you all the drafts. And it's like, It's that easy, And it's like, you don't need a super fancy logo. As a matter of fact, sometimes simpler is better,
I agree.
If I want to replicate this, I can't draw it, Like, that's the toughest part. Like, the thing I could replicate, maybe the pig's head, but like, it's still like, I can't but if you have something, like I said, M and an H in a circle, put in there in a fancy way, like, you could just do that on the bathroom in a bar or something, boom, here you go. Or it's like an easy sticker idea, and that was the other thing. Like, I want stickers. Like, the guy sent me every time I had him redesign something and I paid him, he would send me all the different drafts. And it's like, well, I've got this logo with the pig bigger. I've got this logo with just the headphones. I've got the, so he sent me all these different drafts, and it's like, I'm just going to make a sticker out of each one of these. Why not? And because I don't know what everybody prefers. I put them up on a shop and people buy different ones all the time. So nobody prefers one over the other. Yeah. And that's the tough part about merch though too, is finding something everyone will like. I didn't want to go like I've got 3 color hoodies, and I didn't want to go like a 3 color shirt. I felt like it was too noisy, especially on one of these like lightweights. And I wanted gray on black because it doesn't stand out too much, but it stands out just enough. Like people can read it and stuff, but it's not like yelling at you the loudest thing in the room. It's kind of like my podcast. It's understated, and it should be, because I talk to musicians, and the musicians are like the real thing. Like sometimes I'm like, how come everybody doesn't listen to every single episode? Well, some people are just fans of the band and they want to listen to that episode, and it's like, well, that's what it's there for. It's there for people to get to know these people better, and it's not like I'm going to try and force it on anybody, or just, like you said, I'll stick this on something. It's like, I don't care if you stick the stickers on, the bathroom stall, someone's going to see it there, put it on the mirror, put it on wherever, it doesn't matter. Put it on a water bottle, and it's your sticker now too, but so it's like, you can do whatever you want with it, but still, like, I'm not trying to like force it down anybody's throats. And that's one of like the oversharing. Comes back to that oversharing thing. I always wonder if I'm oversharing on Facebook, and posting too many pictures or trying to do too much, because I think like it'd be nice, I've got a nice phone with it takes pictures well. I can photo edit decent enough that I could do like photographs at concerts, but like how much stuff do you want to do? Do you want to record the thing and then do photographs and then podcast with the person afterwards, and like not just to make no money, just to help people, And I'm not trying to say it just to make no money. I've got a sponsor, I get sponsored by Couchtown Coffee, and hats off Couchtown Coffee. If you guys like coffee, hit up Couchtown, code word Audible Farm for this week. It'll be the week that this airs, but yeah, you can save yourself 20% on coffee. I don't know, like, and it helps out. It helps out. It does a little bit, but it's also like you said, I'm not getting rich on this. I don't make enough to eat every day, on the podcast. So like, it's not like I'm getting rich doing this. I like doing this. It's just like playing music, and I'm sure that's no different than why you're doing this. Yeah,
no, exactly. But I do get what you're saying. Like, your time is still your time. You can't like sacrifice all of your time for something that you're not, it's not monetizable.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not going to quit a paying job just to, do this full time. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I mean, that's case in point 100%. And there's a lot of people that go through that in the music scene, though, too, where it's like, is this worth my time? And I've had that conversation with a lot of people, even like recently as of COVID, where they're like, I spent all this time, energy, and money on like making albums and doing all this stuff, and then I can't even play for a year, So like, how worth it is this to me, And then they start to realize like, oh, this is what it would be like if you had free time, And then they're like, I actually like spending time with my family and my wife and my kids, or whatever, given different life situations. So like I said, some of these conversations happen after the podcast, so they're not like promoted at all. But it's like, I've talked to people that have like kind of wiggled in and out of the music scene before, and I've done it too. Like I said, I played in my late teens and then didn't play for like almost 10 years and then jumped back in. So you get to see people's different thoughts and avenues on what's going on, but it's weird to see people re-gauging how they're utilizing their free time, and it's this pandemic has definitely done a lot of that.
Yeah, it's changed a lot, that's for sure. What about wrestling? I was hearing I think it was either your second to last episode, you guys were like really talking about wrestling, and personally, I've never really got into it, so I'm kind of curious. What's your love with that?
Yeah, I'm not going to fault you at all for not liking wrestling. Either you like it or you don't, and that's just how it is. And I don't know. I like pro wrestling growing up. I mean, everyone knows who Hulk Hogan is. Obviously, so it's just like Hulk Hogan, he's cool, he's just America, brother, he does the big boot and the leg drop, and woo, that's Ric Flair, woo, and I mean, everybody knows like a handful of wrestlers, and some of them have transcended their thing. It's like you walk down the street and talk to somebody who doesn't play football. You know who Tom Brady is? Yeah, it's like Tom Brady is the Hulk Hogan of football. It's just I'm not trying to be like, hey, but like I don't know. There was always this joke that the real world imitates pro wrestling, which I think is actually a thing. But like, so like, I don't know. Everybody watches pro wrestling growing up, and some of my buddies, had pro wrestling video games, or they'd watch it every now and then and be like, "This is so cool." And you'd hear about some things like wrestling's kind of neat and stuff like that. And then somebody showed me a video of Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon in a ladder match at WrestleMania 10, and I was like, this is wild. Why are they wrestling with a ladder? And they're like, oh, they're fighting over who is the real champion, and they hung the belt up above the ring, and whoever's the real champion is going to be the guy that climbs up and grabs it. And it's like, who thinks of this stuff? You're like mind blown, and then after a while you're like, Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler. He's so cool. And so then you're like, all right, well, I got to watch Shawn Michaels do stuff. And then he's having an Iron Man match with Bret Hart, and you start to just like, I didn't have cable, so I would hear about all this stuff, and I would have to like, maybe at my friend's house, and like, you'd see like little clips of it on like a Saturday morning, like WWE show or whatever. You'd be like, oh, cool, this happened last week. And like, I missed it, and then I had... Eventually, technology kind of caught up with everything. Everybody's video recording everything. So, without the express written consent of so I don't know. I would videotape Raw and then watch it at my house and be like, "This is so cool!" Like, I never got to watch this growing up, and now I get to watch it. And that was when like Stone Cold Steve Austin started, drinking the beer and whooping the ass or whatever the whole deal. So like he's doing that whole thing. These characters, I don't know why they like everybody knows what they are, and they're all funny. I love them all, but like. Everybody knows Stone Cold, right? Stone Cold drank beer and had shaved head and skull, and it was that whole time. He was like the second coming of like a Hulk Hogan, like a once in a lifetime style person, and you start to realize like this transcends wrestling once again. It's so much bigger and better than just this. It's like this is pop culture, this is also like counterculture, and I really enjoyed wrestling, and then I, as an adult, it's like I don't have time for pro wrestling, like a bunch of dudes in their underwear, like all waxed up and wrestling each other. Like I don't. It's just soap opera for dudes.
Yeah, well, the thing that I could never get past was just the fact of how staged it was.
Yeah, and that's honestly like it made me just. Some of that's what turned me off to it. It became a caricature of itself, and like you'd see things replay sometimes, and then once somebody was like, "Hey, did you know that there's gonna be pro wrestling at the county fair?" And like I said, I live in a small town, so it's like, well, what else is there to do?
That's different.
Yeah, I could get pizza at the Casey's gas station, or I can go to this, and those are the two options I have. So I went to this pro wrestling thing, and I was just like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I mean, yeah, it's just a bunch of like, I want to say like local yokels, but it's like guys from around the Midwest that all teamed up to like meet in one place for a promotion to fake fight each other, and they like wrangled in the sheriff from town. They're like,
oh, no way.
They're like, you know how badass I am. I drove through this town at 90 miles an hour with a dead fish up to my nose because it stinks so bad. And the sheriff saw me doing it, and he didn't even pull me over. That's how badass I am, you know. And then the sheriff comes sauntering out there like, what did you say? Like, I most certainly would have pulled you over if you were doing that stuff. And it's like, you don't say that about my town, you know. And that, you do that whole thing, and it's just like, this is actually really entertaining, you know. And for any pro wrestling fans, I don't know how many will listen to this, but like Harley Race was there. And that was one of those cool things. Like Harley Race was like 5 feet away from me, like right there, you know. And I'm fairly certain he passed away recently, but you know, it's like really cool to be like, dude, this guy was in my town or whatever, you know. And some of my friends that went with me to that show were just like, yeah, we'll go, whatever. And then they found out that like Des Moines had some shows, and they were like, let's go to another one of those wrestling shows. And they went to a wrestling show, and they like pretty much hit the jackpot. They went to like one of the best shows of the year for the promotion that they went to, and they were like, dude, this is killer, you know. So they like, you got to come down here and go to some of these shows. So I started coming to shows down here, and then like I said, I'm from just north of Fort Dodge, and then north of where I'm from is in Algona, and they used to run professional wrestling up in Algona sometimes. So like I'd drive up there. It's just a short drive, and I'd drive up there and watch those guys, you know, wrestle. And I eventually like kind of befriended a handful of the people, and you know, I just started going to shows like all over the place, and I was interacting with them on Twitter, and I was pretty much doing what I'm doing now on the podcast, but on Twitter I would tweet the results for things. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, and I know people like do the humble brag thing a lot, but it got kind of weird to the point where like Triple H and Vince McMahon would like occasionally retweet stuff I would say, you know. And I know they're not always the ones running their Twitter, but but if you like say something nice about the show and tag WWE in it, it's like, well, this would look good on Vince McMahon's Twitter, you know. So they retweet it, and like this
that helps you out too.
Bingo, you know. So like, and it got to the point where like I knew who like the guys that were training the guys on TV were, so I'd follow them and see like who's getting signed, and you know, who's, you know, what's going on. And eventually some of them started following me to see like, you know, this guy's got his finger on the pulse of like the Iowa area, what's going on, you know. And maybe I'll just see what this guy, you know, who's going to shows, who's at like every show, or who's wrestling 2 or 3 times a week in places where it's hard to do that, you know. Who's the people that are in high demand, and why are they in high demand? And then let's look online and find them, and maybe we'll bring them to like, you know, TV, maybe, you know. And so it got kind of weird with people like that following me. And I mean, I was invited to do a few different things, like do surveys for WWE and stuff like that based on how I like preferred their stuff. And I mean, that's pretty much just called a super fan is what I was. They're super fans. You get to peek behind the curtain and tell everyone, because you like it so much that you're like the bridge between these people in the business and an average fan. So they start to be like, what do you like, and how do we, you know, address that and things like that. And I don't know, I like the wrestling scene a lot. There was, you know, it's just like every other scene. There's some things about it that I didn't like, you know. It's just like the music scene. Like we were talking, some people are just not friendly at shows, and it's like, I don't like that at all, but you just got to deal with it because it happens sometimes. So like you'd run into a little bit of that, the wrestling scene. So I kind of like, you know, dipped out. But before I did, I was involved with I don't know, we do like a program out of like the Kentucky area. It was worldwide based, but they did what they called the indie power rankings, and we would sit down and rank guys on the independent scene that were not on TV, and come up with like a top 10 every week. Like these were the best wrestlers of the week or whatever. And then at the end of the year, you would compile them all based on points and figure out who the best 100 guys were. So so we'd try to do something like that. Kind of, I mean, there was already something in place like that called Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500, where they rank the 500 best professional. Yes, there's that many professional wrestlers. So yeah, I know you're thinking like, it's on TV. There's like 30 guys on there. It's like, yeah, but there's so many dudes wrestling in bingo halls around the world. So they would do that, but we would do something kind of like that. And we had guys from, you know, England and South Africa and Australia, and I mean, Kansas City. I mean, they were all over the place, and I was one of the Midwest guys that would help vote on things. And you know, everybody represented their area pretty well, so you could help promote your guys by voting them up, you know, up the list. And it was just kind of based on who have you seen lately, and who, you know, wowed you. And then it was just like an over complex like ranking system of wrestlers, but I really enjoyed doing it, and eventually that kind of went away. So like I bowed out of that and quit doing a lot of wrestling stuff, because I was like, well, if I'm going to be going to shows and driving down to, you know, the Des Moines area anyways, why would I, you know, drive down excess amounts. Like you said, it comes back to free time. How much free time do you have? And it's like I can't spend every single drop, so I can't go to shows anymore. And especially with how much time I was spending playing at shows or supporting other bands and things like that. But I still do really, really enjoy pro wrestling. I keep up with it a little bit. I don't watch it on TV anymore. Like that came back down to like how much time do you want to spend, because there's there's a 2-hour show on Tuesdays or whatever, and there's a 3-hour show on Monday, and then there's all the non-TV aired shows that go on as well. And I don't have 40 hours a week to spend watching wrestling anymore, so I don't, but I still do enjoy it. I'll still Google up crazy matches that have happened and watch them, because I enjoy some of that theatricalness of it. But I think that came back to also like seeing it live sparked my interest in it, because like I said, wrestling becomes a caricature type deal. You're just like, oh, this is, they're going to fake punch each other. And this guy, something, Undertaker's not really a dead guy. You get like all that stuff. It's like, yeah, obviously, like I get it. But like when you go see him live and it's like, oh, this is a real person. Like this is an actual real person, like 10 feet away from me, that even though he's just taking like a hip toss, it's like, I wouldn't want somebody to like, I'm not going to like willingly go up there and fake flip and land on my back for somebody, like just to make somebody else look good for a second, or I got punched and I went from a standing position to flopping on the ground. Like that's going to hurt. Like I'm not going to do any of that. So I would watch these guys. I'm like, this is crazy. No matter how simple it is, some of the stuff is really wild. And then like I said, occasionally you'd see some stuff that would trump what you would see on TV. And you're like, this is insane. Like you would never see this on TV, or people would never get away with like saying this or doing these things on TV, or sometimes you go to shows, it's like, well, there's like 40 people here tops, and then that's like sometimes where, like I said, you get to see some really crazy magical stuff where like, I don't know, almost don't want to give some of the examples away because some of them are pretty malicious, but like there was some people that would be able to draw so much heat, which is anger from the crowd. They would draw so much heat that the crowd would literally just lose their marbles. Like people would try and jump the railing and beat these people up. And we're talking like I said, we're in Des Moines at a show here, and it's like there are 300 people at the event, and someone's trying to jump the railing and beat somebody up for some reason. Like, it's like we're all well aware that this is staged at this point in time, right? Wrestling's fake. We decided that in the 90s. It's fake, but like somebody's still so riled up they're gonna try and beat somebody up, and like you'd see crazy stuff like that happen at like full events. At empty ones, guys are more liable to like yell at the crowd and direct anger like directly at people instead of just being like, this crowd is stupid. And then it's like, oh, that's an obvious thing to get people to boo at, but like, this dude in the red hat over here, looks like he drove a Ford F-150 rusted, you start doing stuff like that, and it's like, it's kind of like, I hearken it a lot to comedy, like bigger comedy things. They can all they can really do is just address generally like the town or things like that. But if you're in a small comedy club, it's just like, hey miss, what's your deal? And it's like you can start to really interact more personally. And that was something I liked about going to independent shows, is you could interact with these people. And I mean, I was even asked a few times to play along with certain games, and like, this wrestler is going to come out here and do this thing, and they'd like whispered in your ear before the show, and it's like, all right, so they're going to be fishing for this reaction, and you would like do it, just to play along with the storyline, even though like in my heart I want to, cheer this guy, I'm going to boo him instead, or whatever, and things like that. So I would play along sometimes with the games and things like that, and get like slightly, like very minusculely involved as only a fan could get. But like that's also something some wrestlers look down on, which I found was like, wrestling is a very broad thing, just like music. There's some people that like certain styles of wrestling. Yes, there are styles of wrestling. It's dumb as it sounds. Like, go watch, AAA down in Mexico. It looks very different than WWE looks. If you go watch New Japan out of Japan, it looks very different than both of those companies. So there's different styles, and you start to find out different people like things more old school, and some people don't like to talk to the fans at all, and so like, even though these people are nice, friendly people, they just will not talk to you, and it's weird, but like you just get over it, because you just start to realize, that was what made me realize, like, oh, there's different people, they're all getting together to do this thing, but they're all different people. And it's like, that's how the music scene needs to be, is everyone needs to come together to put on a great show. Yes, promote yourself, but also promote the other people, because like pro wrestling especially was the way, like, one guy can't look good if the other guy doesn't let him look good. It's just not. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
If you and I are fake fighting, and every time you punch me, I just act like it doesn't hurt. Like it's gonna make me look like, the Incredible Hulk, and you look bad. So I get to choose how good you look. And that's something you watch these people, and you'd find people that didn't like each other even a little bit that would interact well enough in a ring to, be professional. And you start to look into the tabloids of pro wrestling and find out that happens a lot. And you're like, well, these guys are actually like weirdly professional about how they're going about doing their stuff, which is kind of surprising, honestly. So
have you ever seen The Wrestler?
Yeah, the Mickey Rourke movie.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Darren Aronofsky film.
Yeah.
I was really into his films for a while because they were like the perfect mix of like, this is one example of something, and here's another example that is a completely different thing, but it's like all the parallels.
Yeah. So, Requiem for a Dream.
Yep.
One of my, to anyone who hasn't seen it, very disturbing.
Ludicrously disturbing, but very good movie. Like
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
Like how they parallel like the lady with the, taking the amphetamines with like heroin use and like, Train Spotting's another good one kind of with that, like how they just, parallel these things. Like they really break, like Requiem for a Dream especially, like breaks down like there's no such thing as like these kind of drugs, this or whatever. Like everything is like a drug essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it was to the point where like some of the people that wanted to do like whatever crack or whatever it was, and it was like some crazy drug, and it was like they thought they were going to be movie stars or like music stars or whatever, and they thought that like the more they did it, the better they would get, and the less they did it, the less awesome. And like the mom was doing amphetamines as like a diet thing because she wanted to be on TV, and she thought if she was thinner, she could be on TV.
Yeah,
and it showed them both spinning out of control to the point where it was like
just out of control. Yeah,
and that was like The Wrestler was the same deal. It was like
it
was Mickey Rourke was the wrestler, and gosh, who was the female in that movie?
I don't even
Marissa
remember.
Tomei. No,
I'm not sure. It's been a couple years.
Do not quote me on that. Oof. Sorry, Marissa Tomei, if that wasn't you. My cousin Vinny. Woo. No.
That's a good movie.
So yeah, like the parallels in there was like you have like a 40-year-old stripper and a 40-year-old wrestler, and people look at them the same way. It's like you were good in in your 20s, but you're kind of washed up now, and these people still have to like tan up and weight lift or like try to look good and shave their bodies and do all this stuff that they probably don't want to do just to go out and do this thing that it's the only thing they know how to do, and they may not want to do that even,
Well, yeah, and it's like it depicted them like not even really having made that much money off it, like he was in a very low income housing the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's wrestlers that have wrestled on the independent circuit, never been on TV, or have been on TV like very tiny amounts and have made way more money on the independent circuit than they ever made on TV. But it's not common. We're talking, it's probably more than I would make working my regular jobs, honestly. But still, it's one of those things where it's not common. It's not a thing that, really happens. Is Hulk Hogan broke? Probably not. But, like it all comes down to, have you seen ESPN Broke? It's like a documentary on how fast professional athletes go broke because they mismanage their money a lot of time, and it has to do with the fact that you haven't lived enough life yet. So like if you're a regular person, you're going to earn most of your money later in life, but if you flip-flop that to the point where you earn almost all your money early in life, and then it keeps going downhill until you're old, because it's opposite of that. So like if you do it flip-flop, if you make all your money at 20 and it slowly gets less and less, how well off are you going to be? And I hate, I want to just judge everyone, but it's like, I wouldn't have been any better off than any of those guys, So,
well, talking about parallels, I can kind of think like, it's a parallel to music. A lot of those artists, they sell out, they make it big right in the beginning, and then like 20 years later, they're nothing, and they're, broke, and they're doing the same thing everybody else is.
Oh gosh. Yeah. And that guy's a tough one too. Cause I mean, there have been bands that it's like, here's your record deal. You get X amount of dollars. What you have to do now is make an album for us. And it has to be this many songs. We're going to cut some off and blah, blah, this, that, and the other. And that's produced and ready to go songs. And there have been bands that have squandered so much of their money that by the time they had an album to give to the record company at the end of it all, it's subpar. And the record company says, that's it, we're done. It's like, this is your one album, goodbye, and that's a thing that happens too, and you can do it backwards, and there's other ways that like punk bands, like there are a lot of them that like when they got their money, they didn't know what to do with it, so some of them did goofy things like Sum 41 gets X amount of dollars from their record company to do a music video. So what they do is they went out and bought a bunch of toys and just had like an action figure, like, and it was just like they put their faces on action figures and acted like they were playing guitar, and like, you know, there's like, oh, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are there, and then like, you know, there's the Korn action figures are there, and they had all these different like action figures showing. Barbies were there, and you know, like Batman was at the concert while, you know, so they just had like, that was their music video. So it's like, how much did you spend on this? $100. Like, you get to pocket the rest, you know, and that's just how it works. And I mean, I think like Blink-182 might have even did a music video where they walked around and just gave away money, and it was just videotaping them giving away money because they had money for a music video. So what are you gonna do? I don't know, just walk around and give away this money and then videotape us. And so I think that was a Blink-182 music video, if I'm not mistaken. But like, yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, there's not too many bands that end up making it big, which is kind of rough anyways. But like like we were talking, you can almost DIY yourself into a better position than you would have been if like a record contract, you know, were signed. I remember MC Hammer was always one of those guys that talked a lot about that. He's like, I made more money selling albums out the trunk of my car than I ever did when I got a record deal. I also believe MC Hammer got in trouble for tax evasion. So that's probably why he made so much money selling records out of the trunk of his car, because he never reported it. But like, no,
Suge Knight hung him at the building.
Was that
Give me my money.
Vanilla Ice? He did that too.
Oh, was it Vanilla Ice?
Yes, but I am very well in on like, those two are like the opposite side of the same coin. It's the same exact thing. We're big pants dancing, one-hit wonders. I don't know, unfortunate, but yeah, dude, and that's the thing though too, is like, you don't know exactly how you're gonna, you know, how much, you don't know how much it means to like anybody go buy their album online. Like, I just listening to a musician the other day. He's like, I've got albums for sale, and I know not many people listen to CDs, but when you're done buying it, I really don't care what you do with it. And it was just like, you know, it's kind of like a like thing to say, but at the same time, it's like, that's funny, and it's pretty honest. Like, you use it as a coaster, whatever you need, you know. It can just be like a display thing. Everybody listens to stuff digitally, or if you got a, you know, CD player, go ahead and pop it in your CD player and listen to it, you know. But you know, it's kind of a weird thing. How do bands sell stuff? And that's something I've been discussing with the guys in the Three Finger Betty camp, as far as like, how do you go about recouping any of the money that you know, used to like either make an album, or the time you put into it, or like, are we going to make a music video? Do we pay someone to produce it? How do you recoup any of your money from a music video? You literally don't. Like, you have to make one and use it as a tool for something else, like a promotional tool. So, I mean, there's all these different things where it's not always easy to make money, but like, I don't think people realize how much, you know, how much it means to, you know, people, like even just me having a podcast, to like look at my email and be like, oh, somebody ordered a shirt. That's cool. You know, and it happens, you know, every week or so. And it's just like, this is really neat that somebody like on their own free time, like went to my shop and bought a shirt, you know. It's the same thing with bands. Somebody went and bought a t-shirt at the merch table. It's like, oh, there you go. It's $10 back, you know. And I mean, granted, like $10 shirt, you probably paid $7 or whatever to make it, but still, it's like $3 you didn't have before, you know. So it's really cool to find that people are willing to support you that much, you know. And it also comes down to what kind of merch you want to make. I mean, I'm in a band named Three Finger Betty. When our new album drops, we're gonna change a handful of things, but like our old logos and stuff like that weren't like the most tasteful, awesome things people wanted to wear on t-shirts, which led to lower t-shirt sales, you know. So it's like, you end up with this thing where it's like, darn it, we should have not gone this route, but you don't know unless you try. And
trial and error.
You know, so that's, you know, that was one reason I went really understated with the Audible Farm shirts, was just like, if somebody really wants one, they'll buy one, you know. And then not only that, but like, if somebody wants to support, the shirt's not like offensive, so they'll wear it somewhere still, you know. And it's not that the Three Finger Betty shirts were offensive, but people could easily look at them and be like, what in the heck is that shirt, you know. So it's like, okay, because we had like an oversized pinup gal was like our mascot, I guess, for a while. You know, whatever, it's just what it was. So like, that's what we had on our shirts, and people were like, oh, this is weird, you know, like, it's odd.
Fuck that. I would have thought that was awesome.
Yeah, dude. Some people did. I mean, like, I recently went back to college, and some of the college kids were just like all about it. They were like, this is awesome. And it's just like, yeah, you know, like, I'm still kind of stuck in that mindset of like a 20-year-old, where it's just like, I kind of just want to just like do whatever I want to do, and just screw the rest of the world. I mean, granted, like I've said, I'm about 30 some now, so I'm like a little bit more, you know, toned down, but like, I still have that mindset. I still feel like a 20-year-old. So it's kind of fun to wear, you know, a t-shirt with a fat lady on and be like, this is my band, you know, this is my thing I do, you know. And I don't know. It's just we had to choose something, and that's what we chose. And that was another thing where we gave the person that was doing the art, because we chose somebody else to do the art for that. And it's like, here's a handful of things we think we should do, and that was like something they did was at one point in time specialized in pinup art. So it's just like, do some pinup art on this and see what you can come up with, and that was what he came up with. So, but artists are crazy. They can do all sorts of stuff. Like, that's one of my favorite things. Comes back to like paying someone to do the design. I could have done this, but it wouldn't have looked any good,
Yeah,
yeah. And I don't have the creativity, and it's kind of fun when you give somebody, it's just like, what does your mind think of when you think of this, and
collaboration.
That's the fun part about music, and jam nights too. Like, you go to jam nights, it's like, we're going to play a song. Like, what is it? It's like, it's my song. It's in these chords. And you're like, okay, sounds good. Like, I'll just play along. We'll see what happens. And then you throw solos in there and little bits of stuff, and people are like, that's really cool. And it's like, doesn't everybody else do this when they're playing? It's like, I usually don't have anybody play with me at all. And it's like, well, there you go. Now we made something that nobody else ever heard before. And, it's going to hear never again. And if nobody recorded it, it's like something special. At one time, a lightning struck in a bottle and we captured it there for a little bit kind of deal. And I like that.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're collaborating. We've been going for a while.
Yeah.
I think it's probably about time to wrap it up here. Almost
Cool.
almost 2 hours, actually.
Jeez.
But I guess before we get out of here, you have anything to? You have a lot to plug, I'm sure, or not a lot to plug. What's all your information?
Okay. As far as like what I do for the podcast, it's Audible Farm podcast. You can go to audiblefarm.com. There's links there to everything. Otherwise, we got links to the shop, the Patreon page, all the social media. Mm-hmm. It's at Audible Farm on all the social media if you're just on the social media. So check us out there. The whole like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, thumbs up, poke, whatever you got to do. Hit us with that. Three Finger Betty is at Three Finger Betty pretty much everywhere. It's a punk influence band. Punk is pretty broad range. It's like punk and rock and roll. We have like metal style drumming and fast guitar solos, and it's a thing that's unique for sure. I'm also in a metal band called Unity. We don't play too many shows, but when we do, boy howdy, they come out in droves for it, which is pretty wild. So I've played some of my biggest crowds with the Unity band, so check them out. It's a very awesome power metal style band. Otherwise, those are the three big things I have to promote. Check out my podcast if you like if you like what you hear here, maybe my podcast is something else you might enjoy.
Yeah. No, I will say personally, I have actively been listening to your podcast last week. I really do enjoy it. You have a good voice for radio.
Good face for radio. No.
No, but like I think you and I do very similar things. So
yeah.
I really appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving us, all your tidbits. If you ever need a guest for an episode, let me know. I'm always willing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't sell yourself short in what you're doing here too. That's something that definitely needs to be said. I've been in your shoes right now. It's tough to be the person that's doing the interview being like, well, thank you much. But like, very seriously, you're doing a due service to the community around you and for anybody that looks to partake. And, I'm here to help you out as much as possible because like I said, we're in this thing together, even though we're almost never going to have our paths cross as far as like guests wise and things like that. So I want you to succeed as much as possible. And we're not competing, we're in this together. So and that's important to remember in the music scene too. Like if everybody in your scene locked arms and promoted one band, like I always felt that way. If everybody in the Iowa music scene locked arms and said, this is Iowa's best band, the rest of the nation would take notice.
Exactly.
And that's how it goes. And like, it's tough to get everybody on the same page, but here we are trying, man.
Exactly. That's all we can do.
Yep.
All right. It's been a great fucking episode.
Yeah,
it's been a great time having you on.
Appreciate it.
Stay tuned. Next week, we're going to have Benny the Jet in the studio. This has been a long waited. He's a really big rapper out of Iowa City. He's hitting 1Ks Ks on his music. He's doing really well.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So make sure to check that episode out. It's going to be a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah. Otherwise, I hope everybody's been enjoying themselves. Hanging out, having a drink, whatever, chilling. It's been fun.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. All right. Peace out, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into today's episode with Peter Stockdale. Great time, as always. He's a very interesting character. He had a lot to say, and I really hope, like I said, I really hope to get him back. Stay tuned. Next week, we're going to have Benny the Jet on. He's great. He's an interesting character. I really hope we can talk about a lot. Like I said previously, he's doing a lot in the scene. His online presence is staggering and honestly very impressive for someone coming out of the Midwest. So yeah, like I said, I hope everybody has been chilling, having a good time, and y'all have a good night. Peace.